Hello students, I am Barsha, your teacher, and today we are going to resume our chapter Like Father, Like Daughter, most of the facts from which we have already covered and completed in our previous session. So there is something more important to know today. So let's get started and learn more about the chapter. Now let us move ahead and find out what more is there in store for us. But not this from parents. Students, there are certain qualities and traits which we acquire from our parents. Maybe our looks, maybe our interests, maybe our characteristics. But there are certain things which are not acquired from parents. Let us find out what is that. Sati was only a few months old when one of her legs was affected by polio, but she never let this come in the way of her work and her life. Walking long distances and climbing many stairs has been a part of her work. Now Sati is married. Some people tell her not to have any children. She is also worried that her children may also get polio. She spoke to a doctor about this. Now when Sati was very young, suddenly one of her legs was affected by polio. We all know that since last 5 years we have not seen a single case of polio in our country, and this is not less than an achievement. So this was not there before. So Sati was affected by polio, but she had never let this polio come in her way of success or in her way of life. She used to walk long distances and climb many stairs as any normal person as a part of her work. After that, she got married. Now, when she is married, there are certain people who are advising her not to have children because they feel as Sati was affected by polio, that means if her children are born, they will also get the same disease, they will get polio. But this is not the truth. She went to a doctor to ask about this, and the doctor had explained her very nicely. He said that no, don't be worried. It is not that if any of the parents have polio, their child will also have it. So there are some myths in our society. People are unaware, and it's the lack of awareness for which people feel that these kinds of diseases, like whether it is polio, then that also will be acquired by the children. So that is not the truth. Thank God to the doctor who explained the truth to Sati, and Sati could have her children now. So here are some questions for you to answer. Here is the question for you. Have you read or heard anything about polio? Where? So whether you have read it or not, yes, I have read about polio in newspaper and in many hoardings also, because the eradication of polio is a campaign and it is always displayed on the hoardings, and the advertisements are also shown in the newspaper or in the TV. Now, have you read or heard any news about pulse polio? What? So this is what I was talking about to you people. Yes, I have heard about pulse polio. Pulse polio is a program run by the government. Vaccination camps are organized every month where every child below 5 years of age is given the polio vaccine drops. The vaccine is given free of cost. Do you know of anyone who has polio? So if you know anybody who has got this polio, you can mention about him. Now comes the most important part of the chapter. The person behind this law of inheritance, who has helped us to know how we get the qualities or traits of our parents in our body. That is because of the genes. This theory is known as genetics, and that is only because of the genes present in our father's or mother's body. Like our parents have the same genes, and we also get the same genes through them. So that is through our DNA, which is transmitted from their body to our body, and that's why we acquire the same qualities. So how did this happen? Let us find out now. There's a short story to learn. Experiments with peas, rough or smooth. Now, Gregor Mendel was born in a poor farmer's family in Austria in 1822. He was very fond of studies. But the very thought of examinations made him nervous. Oh, you too feel the same. So Gregor Mendel was the person behind all this, and he was born into a poor family. His family was a farmer's family, and he was born in Austria in 1822. He liked studying so much, but the only thing which scared him was examination. Now, most of the students like to study and explore, but the name of examination is such a scary thought for all of the students. So, Gregor Mendel was also not different. He was also very much scared at the thought of examination. He did not have money to study at the university, so he thought of becoming a monk in a monastery. He thought from there he would be sent to study further, which he was. But to become a science teacher, he had to take an exam. Oh no! He got so nervous that he kept running away from the exam and kept failing. So, because he was not that rich, he could not study in a university because of the lack of funds, because he was not that rich, he was poor, he belonged to a poor farmer's family. So he thought that he would become a monk in a monastery and he would continue his studying further. He was continuing his studies being in a monastery, but to become a science teacher he had to take an exam, and the very thought of exam was so frightening for him. So he kept running away from exam, and that made him fail again and again. But he did not stop doing experiments. For 7 years he did experiments on 28,000 plants in the garden of the monastery. It's so amazing that his passion to learn and study more kept him going, and he experimented on 28,000 plants in his garden at the monastery. He worked hard, collected many observations, and made a new discovery, something which scientists at that time could not even understand. What was it? So he got this new discovery because he had got so many observations and he really worked so hard. But whatever he discovered at that time was not that interesting for the scientists at that time, because they could not even understand. They understood it many years after his death. So it took them long time to understand Gregor's discovery. So they understood it many years after his death, when other scientists did such experiments and read what Mendel had already written. So it was already discovered by Mendel. When later other scientists did the same thing, then others understood that yes, Mendel was very successful at this thing and he had already discovered it earlier. What did Mendel find in those plants? He found that the pea plant has some traits which come in pairs. Now there were some qualities which are found in pairs, like the seed is either rough or smooth. It is either yellow or green, and the height of the plant is either tall or short. So these traits come in pairs, nothing in between. The next generation, that means the children of a plant which has either rough or smooth seeds, will also have seeds which are rough or smooth. There is no seed which is mixed, a bit smooth and a bit rough. So this is what his observation was, that the pea plant had two of the qualities, either it would be rough or smooth, and when the next generation comes into the being, it will be also either rough or smooth, but it will not be in between. That means the mixed quality or mixed characteristics will never be found. He found the same with color. Seeds which are either green or yellow give rise to new seeds which are either green or yellow. The next generation does not have seeds with a mixed new color made from both green and yellow. So he continued this with other traits also, like color of the pea plant, that was also the same. Mendel showed that in the next generation of pea plants there will be more plants having yellow seeds. He also showed that the next generation will have more plants with smooth seeds. What a discovery! Indeed, that was a great discovery, and from that only this law of inheritance came into being, and we know about the genetics, which is very interesting. Now there are something which we should know, because some of the traits, as I have already discussed earlier, that some of the traits are from the family but not all. Some are acquired from the environment. Now let us see how and what are those. From a distance, Vibha knows that her Nana, that means grandfather, is coming from his loud laughter. Nana also talks loudly and hears with difficulty. So, are there any people in your house who talk loudly? Is it their habit or they cannot also hear very well? This is a question for you to explore and find out in your family. Why do they do it? Is it because it is their habit or they cannot hear very well, that's why they shout? So you will find out that mostly they could not hear very well, so they talk loudly. Now here is another question for you to explore. Are there times when you do not talk loudly in front of some people? When? With whom? Why? When can you speak loudly? So yes, there are times when I do not talk loudly. I talk softly in front of my father, mother, because I respect them. I have to speak loudly with my grandfather because he could not hear my soft voice. Now here is another question for you. Some people use a machine in their ear to help them hear better. Some use a stick or spectacles to help them in other ways. Do you know someone who does so? You would have observed in your neighborhood who take the help of the hearing aid or a stick to walk or spectacles. If you know someone, you can mention about them. Now let us see what more is there for you to do. Talk to people who cannot hear very well. Find out if they had this problem from birth. When did they start to have a problem with hearing? What difficulties do they face? So you would find so many people around yourself who cannot hear very well. So you have to talk to them and you have to find out whether they had this problem from the beginning, from the birth, or they acquired it suddenly. What difficulties do they face and how do they manage it? I do feel that you will learn a lot of things when you discuss these things with them. So we have seen that some traits or habits we get from our family, some things and skills we learn from our environment. At times our abilities change because of some illness or old age. All this together make us what we are. So we have already discussed that there are certain traits, qualities or habits which we get from our family. That is because of the genes we possess. It is inherited from our parents or their parents or our forefathers or any distant relative. We do similar things which they also do. That is all in the family. But there are certain things, there are certain skills which we learn from our environment. Sometimes with time, with age, with the situations, our abilities also change. But all these together, whether the qualities we possess from our parents or the skills we learn from our environment, those all together make us who we are. So that's what we should be proud of, and we as human beings should possess all good and special qualities so that others also admire it and respect it. So we should respect others, we should take care of others. These are the qualities which we should all possess, whether it is there in your environment, whether it is acquired by your parents. These qualities are very important and very special to be acquired by all the human beings. So here we come to the end of this chapter, and I do believe that whatever we have learnt is very effective and very useful for you to use in your daily lives. So what we have learnt, let us discuss a very important question. What do you think? What all is a part of you that you got from your mother's side? So you have to think and you have to find out that what all qualities you have acquired from your mother. So there are certain misconceptions in our society, just like polio, that polio can also be inherited and the children also get polio. Similarly, there are some misconceptions in our society like polio, leprosy is also there. So people feel that if your parent had leprosy or polio, then you can also get it. So these things are not correct. You should go to a doctor and then you should find out the real reason. These diseases like leprosy or polio, they are caused by virus or some other means. that doesn't mean that the children also will inherit the same disease from the parent. So you should not be worried, and you should try to avoid these misconceptions. You should take the advice of a doctor and consult a doctor so that he could clarify all your doubts as well as the misconceptions which prevail still in the society. I do believe that this information would be really helpful for you and you can practically implement it in your lives. So students, we have already covered the most important elements of this chapter. This chapter conveyed us very nicely that what makes us look like our parents or grandparents. Hope this will help you to further understand the things in a better way, and even some of you would pursue your career in this field. Here we come to the end of this chapter, and we'll meet once more again with a very interesting session of another chapter in our next session. Till then, keep yourselves engaged and be safe. Thank you.